à 2 millions d'équivalents vin en 2022. Tout à l'heure, ma collègue des travaux publics parlait de multiplier par 4. En faisant bien le calcul, c'est par 6 que les volumes ont été multipliés. Et ça, c'est la force du partenariat public, puisque l'État ne peut pas disposer forcément des ressources pour faire des projets à cette échelle. Et non seulement ça, la conduite de ce projet par un partenaire privé, MSC, qui est le partenaire de l'État, permet de disposer, dans le cadre de ce projet, donc, d'une structure qui a un métier. Ce métier, c'est la manutention des contenus. Le port, en revenant à son rôle régalien de propriétaire et de régulation. Donc voilà ce qu'il y a derrière le succès. Et pourquoi est-ce que cela va également être un moteur pour notre zone de libre-échange continentale africaine? Alors je crois que l'idée d'avoir une zone de libre-échange est née du fait que l'Afrique est la zone du monde qui converse le peu avec elle-même. Sur certaines parties du monde, nous avons un échange environ 30%, pouvant aller jusqu'à 40% en Asie et en Amérique. Et nous sommes à 17%. Cet investissement, ce partenariat public permet donc aux conteneurs de partir du port de Lomé et d'aller au port de Tema avec une ligne directe. Ce n'est pas la représentante de Maersk qui me démentirait. La plupart des lignes commerciales ont été construites sur un modèle colonial, c'est-à-dire exporter des matières premières et importer des produits chimiques. En mettant en place un hub à Lomé, nous avons des liaisons directes entre le port de Lomé, donc Lomé comme centre de production de consommation, et d'autres capitales africaines, Tema, Abidjan. Voilà une concrétisation de la zone de libre-échange continentale africaine qui permet en fait d'aller par des lignes maritimes directes d'un point de production à un point de consommation ou vice-versa.
Nous sommes sur un succès réel qui découle d'un PPP qui a été mis en place avec un partenaire, et donc ça me permet de m'adresser maintenant au directeur général de MSC Togo et avoir une double question, c'est-à-dire sa vision du partenariat qui a eu lieu ici entre les autorités togolaises. Mais MSC était dans la presse également récemment parce que vous avez fait une très grande acquisition, une acquisition d'un partenaire / concurrent, ce qui me dit que vous faites un pari sur le futur de l'Afrique. Et est-ce que vous pouvez partager avec nous les éléments que vous avez et pourquoi est-ce que vous vous dites voilà notre base de croissance et voilà où on doit aller? Monsieur Clé.
Merci beaucoup. D'abord, en fait, pour présenter un petit peu tout ce qui est aujourd'hui visible, il faut revenir un petit peu en arrière. Il faut se rappeler que les autorités togolaises ont planifié des choses il y a longtemps que personne ne voyait venir. Et ces infrastructures dont la thématique est aujourd'hui l'élément majeur de ce forum, le Togo a fait ce pari il y a déjà plus d'une dizaine d'années en allant chercher des partenaires pour construire ces infrastructures et préparer la base sur laquelle on allait pouvoir développer justement toute cette logistique. Et il y a une phrase que j'aime bien penser en anglais, mais je vais dire en français, mais quand vous avez un rêve, il faut avoir des goals, il faut avoir des targets. Mais plus que ça, il faut avoir de l'engagement, du commitment pour pouvoir démarrer, mais il faut surtout avoir de la consistance pour aller au bout. Et le Togo et son gouvernement ont eu cette consistance pour arriver jusqu'au bout de ce projet et de concrétiser la mise en place de ces TPP avec des partenaires dont MSC pour la partie terminale. Pour donner quelques chiffres qui nous permettent de voir comment ça a changé. À l'époque, vous aviez peut-être une quarantaine de calls, ce qu'on appelle de touchés, 40 navires qui venaient par an au Togo, un par semaine plus ou moins. L'année passée, on en a fait 629 seulement pour MSC. Donc c'est vous donner l'augmentation volumétrique de cela. Ce que disait M. le ministre tout à l'heure, c'est très important. On en parlait tout à l'heure dans la réunion de l'OCDE qui était en ligne, d'ailleurs, qui parlait du même sujet. On parle de la connectivité, de l'indice de connectivité. Aujourd'hui, le port de Lomé a probablement l'indice de connectivité le plus élevé de la sous-région quand on parle de la West-Afrique et de l'Afrique centrale. Puisque depuis Lomé, vous pouvez toucher tous les ports de la sous-région, mais aussi tous les ports de la plupart des autres continents en direct. Vous avez un service de l'Asie, vous avez des services de l'Inde, du Moyen-Orient, de l'Europe du Nord, de la Méditerranée, de l'Amérique du Sud. Et je pense qu'avec tous les projets qui existent dans la zone de PIA, le prochain, ça sera les États-Unis. Et on aura à ce moment-là une connectivité totale sur l'ensemble de tous les continents. Je pense que vraiment, c'est un grand bravo parce que c'est des dizaines d'années de travail pour arriver à ce résultat qui aujourd'hui fait du port de Lomé le 3e ou 4e port du continent.
Excellent, excellent. Alors, pour rester dans le secteur portuaire, je vais m'adresser à une autre entité qui s'appelle Maersk. On a la chance, nous représente ici Maersk. Et ce que je voudrais savoir, c'est, en termes de stratégie, on a vu MSC qui est très présent dans les PPP et qui également a une croissance basée sur l'acquisition. Aujourd'hui, est-ce que vous pouvez partager avec nous 2 mots sur la stratégie de croissance de Maersk d'une part, et d'autre part, dans le contexte de l'accord de libre-échange continental, comment est-ce que aujourd'hui vous voyez l'insertion de Maersk et les opportunités qui en découlent?
Merci beaucoup. C'est une question de 2 volets. Le premier volet pour la stratégie de Maersk en général et la stratégie de Maersk en Afrique. Donc, pour revenir légèrement en arrière, parce qu'on a une limitation en termes de temps, Maersk est présent en Afrique depuis des années. Tous les pays africains, avec des équipes locales africaines également, qui maîtrisent les spécificités locales et qui ont une large connaissance du marché. Nous sommes beaucoup plus sur une stratégie d'intégration logistique, c'est-à-dire que nous nous efforçons d'offrir toute la valeur toute la chaîne de valeur logistique quand on est présent dans un marché, donc pas uniquement le transport terrestre, mais ça va être également tous les services à valeur ajoutée autour. Tout ce qui est services douaniers, transport terrestre, aérien, et notamment, pour revenir à la question spécifiquement en Afrique, nous avons également lancé des projets de fulfillment warehouses. Plusieurs localisations en Afrique, que ce soit en Afrique centrale, Afrique de l'Ouest ou également Afrique du Sud. Donc, une stratégie d'intégration, la possibilité d'offrir des fulfillment warehouses, cold storages as well.
Revenir à la question de la zone d'intégration africaine, c'est une opportunité exceptionnelle d'agrandir les marchés. Et je pense que Tidjane Thiam le mentionnait hier, exactement la même idée aurait un impact différent selon si elle est appliquée en Côte d'Ivoire ou aux US. Et les zones de libre-échange africaines font tout simplement que tout investissement est largement plus intéressant parce qu'il donne une ouverture extrême à plusieurs marchés. Donc nous sommes énormément présents sur tout ce qui est interland transport, tout ce qui est transport terrestre entre les pays, où nous offrons non seulement nos camions, mais également tout ce qui est control towers autour. Donc une visibilité en temps réel de tous les transports entre les pays, avec une mise à jour au niveau digital et la possibilité et la garantie d'avoir une visibilité sur tout ce qui est safety, real-time management, and so on and so forth.
Donc on est sur une intégration de la chaîne de valeur.
Intégration de la chaîne de valeur adaptée spécifiquement à l'ouverture
des marchés continentaux.
Tout en s'adaptant aux marchés locaux. Et spécifiquement pour donner l'exemple du Togo, parce que c'est notre pays hôte, nous avons investi récemment dans, par exemple, des motobikes électriques.
D'accord.
Pour justement nous adapter au marché togolais, pour pouvoir faire de la distribution locale, adaptée au marché local, mais également tirée vers les pays.
Je pense que tout à l'heure, Moses va nous parler de l'électrification des systèmes de transport, mais pour rester un peu sur la zone, Monsieur le ministre a expliqué les bases au Togo, d'avoir mis une législation PPP, d'avoir fait confiance à un partenaire, et donc tous les deux, MS et Mars, vous avez fait des investissements. Dans ma présentation tout à l'heure, j'expliquais que nous avons 16 pays qui sont enclavés, et qu'il faut, si on a fait une partie, et là je viens vers Scanning System qui est un maillon très important, c'est-à-dire qu'on fait tous ces investissements sur des ports au Togo. Il faut que ces marchandises puissent arriver dans les pays de l'Interland. il faut pouvoir avoir des infrastructures en place parce que c'est vrai qu'il y a une zone de libre-échange continentale, mais si on ne met pas les jalons nécessaires, alors c'est une sous-utilisation. Et c'est pour ça, Maurice, j'aimerais que tu nous dises quelques mots sur ce que j'ai appelé tout à l'heure le parent pauvre, c'est-à-dire l'élément très important des postes de contrôle juxtaposés aux frontières et du schéma logistique sur lequel mon impression personnelle, c'est qu'il n'y a pas eu l'attention nécessaire à cela.
Oui, merci beaucoup, Kader. J'ai écouté avec beaucoup d'attention Monsieur le ministre tout à l'heure. C'est notre argument. Si on remplaçait tout ce qui a été fait au port de Lomé sur les frontières, il aurait dit tout ce que j'ai à dire ce matin. En fait, nos pays ont, ces dernières décennies, investi massivement dans les aéroports, dans les ports, et le parent pauvre a été les frontières. Les frontières africaines sont riches. Les ports, les aéroports, en grande majorité, ne sont pas utilisés par la majorité de la population africaine. Nos parents se déplacent majoritairement à travers nos frontières. Les marchandises inter- et intracommunautaires passent par nos frontières. Mais quel est le constat sur nos frontières? Je ne sais pas si vous passez par les frontières terrestres africaines, c'est vraiment le parent pauvre qui ne jouit d'aucune attention. Il faut un vrai changement de paradigme, la manière de voir ce passage à la frontière. Quand vous allez à nos frontières terrestres, les services de contrôle sont dans des conditions tout à fait inadmissibles. C'est des conditions sans équipement spécifique pour faire leur travail correctement. Passer d'un pays à un autre chez nous peut prendre 3 à 4 jours. Il est plus facile d'avoir des fraises de France ou d'Angleterre dans n'importe laquelle de nos capitales que d'avoir de la cola de Côte d'Ivoire, en Gambie par exemple, ou parler du Togo, la nana togolaise que tout le monde connaît, mais qui est très difficile à obtenir à Dakar, à Abidjan et ailleurs. Pourquoi? Parce que le passage d'un pays à un autre pose problème. C'est en cela que Scanning Systems, après avoir fait des études de faisabilité, s'est greffé sur le programme régional de transport routier et de facilitation. Et nous avons identifié les frontières comme le parent pauvre des échanges intra-africains. Donc, en cela, nous nous sommes investis massivement dans la création de ce qu'on appelle les postes de contrôle de juxtaposition. Qu'est-ce que ça veut dire? Chez nous, traditionnellement, quand on passe d'un pays à l'autre, on fait toutes les formalités dans le pays de sortie. 500 mètres plus loin, on va refaire les mêmes formalités dans le pays d'entrée. Donc, c'est une duplication des mêmes formalités, sans parler de toutes les contraintes, la série sur le. Les postes de contrôle juxtaposés permettent de regrouper sur une plateforme logistique moderne les services de contrôle de 2 pays, mettent à leur disposition un système de gestion informatique intégré qui leur permet de traiter une sortie ou une entrée de façon simultanée, de sorte à fluidifier et à intensifier le trafic entre nos différents pays. Je prends l'exemple du poste de contrôle juxtaposé de 50C. Nous avons ouvert en 2011, qui était le poste pilote, qui a permis de mettre en place toute la réglementation pour les postes de contrôle juxtaposés futurs. Quand nous avons commencé en 2012-2013, il y avait environ un trafic journalier de 180 et 220 véhicules journaliers. Aujourd'hui, nous sommes passés à plus de 1000 véhicules par jour. Camions, bus, voitures.
Fois 10 en 10 ans.
En 10 ans, fois 10. Les postes de contrôle juxtaposés, à notre avis, est le maillon faible, mais le maillon essentiel pour l'accroissement des échanges intra-africains.
Alors, bon, tu as parlé des frontières. Et speaking about borders, I want to come to USIS because you are in the air transport sectors, and you just mentioned the difficulty we have with land borders. So, in the context of the Continental Free Trade Agreement, which is supposed to facilitate the movement of people, and first I must commend you for what ASCI has done to facilitate the integration of the people in this region, because we all know, we travel, how difficult it is to get from one capital here to the next, so congratulations on actually pushing this through. But what I want to hear you on is, how do you see the agreement and the treaties that were signed? How does that facilitate your business, and how and in which direction, and how are you going to further enhancing the integration of the region? Is that translated to more lines, more destinations that are being served? How does that facilitate your business? And if not, if it doesn't, tell us. We have deciders here who can make the case for you.
Well, the airline ASCA is operating in West Central and South Africa, about 26 destinations. Now, in the next 1 month, we have a plan also to open Rwanda, Angola, and the other month also to East Africa, Nairobi. So that makes Lomé the 5th biggest connecting hub for the inter-African air traffic. That will be next to Addis, Johannesburg, Nairobi, Cairo, and then Lomé. Lomé comes out of nowhere and becomes, with a continent of 54 countries, it becomes the 5th biggest inter-Africa connector. It is because of ASCA. So the destinations are going to increase. What we envisage, the advantages from Saturn and Continental Free Trade Agreement and Free Sky and all this, our biggest concern on these things is that so that they will not remain just invoking slogans. You know, African countries agree at AIM level, but when they come to their respective governments, they need to sincerely implement them. Right now, when we see the integration of West and Central Africa, people are highly integrated. They have common currency, they have common language, French language, and what they have been lacking was transport facilities in terms of logistics. You know, air transport is the most practical way of connecting people and goods, because instead of building 30,000 kilometers of railways or road, if you build just 3-kilometer runway, then you are able to connect the people. And what we do is that now the route networks are there as a logistic, but the soft connectors like Saturn and Continental Free Trade and all this, countries need to sincerely implement them. There are places in Africa where I would like to fly, but although they are signatories of this, they have not been forthcoming to keep me flying right up to now. So they need to be really sincerely implementing these things. By the time you do that, and also the soft integrator, the soft logistical integrators like visa regime, tariffs. For visas, for example, respective African countries are welcoming for people coming from the Northern Hemisphere. But when it comes to granting visa for each other, they make you pay big money and they keep you waiting for long. These are soft blockades for that logistics. So Africa needs to be sincere to be working on all of this. Otherwise, the level is set for integrating the continent, and we'll continue doing that.
Thank you. And then one quick word from you on the cargo, because what we would have expected is that as the Continental Free Trade Agreement comes into force, it would have increased the flow of goods, which means that your cargo business should have increased. Have you really seen that? And if not, what?
Well, right now, because we have been narrow body operators, from the aircraft belly capacity, space has not been much ample for additional cargo from baggage and excess baggage. But we do have cargo airway bill, plus we also do cargo charter to connect goods within the region. But our plan for cargo having here in Lomé is that, in collaboration with our strategic partner, Ethiopian Airlines, dedicated full freighters of 100-ton capacity, they will bring the cargo to deposit it here so that we can broadcast it within the region. We are planning to bring narrow body cargo dedicated aircraft up to 21 ton so that we can broadcast the cargo which is brought from Asia and intercontinental Africa. Also, they bring it here and then we broadcast it to the rest of the region we operate. So we have a plan for it.
Thank you. Now, coming to you, Moses, because we've been talking about the transport sector, and the transport sector has been seen historically as not being the cleanest, right? Then we have the CEO of an airline company who will not tell us different, and then scanning system takes care of a few trucks that are going through their borders. Now, yesterday, the president of the bank, Edem, spoke about greening the economy. And it seems that there's a few startups that are coming in now and helping in the sector of e-mobility. Can you talk to us about why you think that this has lagged in the transport sector, and what it is that you're doing about it concrete?
Thank you very much. I think we must first start and accept that for the very long time, most of the transport, if we are to talk about vehicles that are actually operating in Africa, are second, third, fourth, even 10th hand. So we've been a mass importer of what's obsolete technology from other countries, and that's the way we've been. That's actually where, like in Kenya, the average vehicle that's imported is 8 years old. So when you're now trying to green that, you find that barrier to actually move into an electric vehicle is extremely high. But I think Africa is at a very good point right now to actually start leapfrogging that whole ecosystem. Because what we're seeing in those source markets for those vehicles is they are now beginning to make tangible commitments that these vehicles will not be available. Now, either we wait for buy second-hand electric vehicles, or we can actually take the opportunity now and actually leapfrog and start actually the value chains to actually start bringing those electric vehicles here, start bringing, using that infrastructure. We're talking a lot about distribution of electricity and green power. If you are going to generate all this green energy and then you don't put it into public transport, and remember 80% of all Africans either take one form of public transport, whether it's a two-wheeler, whether it's what we call in the East Africa tattoos, and I think I don't know what they call here. All of us are actually taking, majority of the people do not take, no offense, do not take aeroplanes. They actually are taking your normal public transport. Now, that is the area we can actually make a huge impact. One, on the energy, and even when we're talking about infrastructure, as well building the infrastructure for the future, we must build infrastructure knowing that in 10 years, Africa is going to be a continent where we're going to be operating electric vehicles, especially with all the conversation we're having here on green energy. We must use that green energy to actually put it into transportation, because that's when we make the biggest impact on our environment and our climate. And that's actually energy that's generated in Africa. That is something that is bankable, and all that money remains here. So we are not actually becoming just a net import of vehicles, a net importer of fossil fuels. So that's actually what we are trying to do with public transport. So we started in the bus market. I'm glad to see that you're involved with BRT. In Kenya, we're actually doing it. In Kenya, the entire public service vehicle is private. So we're actually providing electric vehicles at using innovative financing to these private operators. And that's actually going quite well.
Thank you. And I think it's critical that we realize that there's ways of greening this sector, and we need to change the paradigm, and even what's associated with transport as being dirty and so on. So I want to come to each of you, which are leaders in your field, to share a word about what it is that you're doing and how you're addressing greening, whether it is in the port sector, in the logistics, or the airline. Who's volunteer to go first to tell us? Maybe Muna, you can go first and tell us what you're doing in greening your sector.
In greening the sector. So, logistics industry is one of the most polluting industries in the world, and it's not something that we're proud of, but it's something that we need to recognize for us to be able to take actions on it. And one of the major actions is making sure that we run with green energy, because those ships that actually transport the goods from one extreme location in the world to the other, they do it while polluting on the way. So green energy, that's a super priority. And it's actually a major field, so we will need way more time to go through the details. And the other thing is any single building, any warehouse, any cold store, anything that we would go and invest in a specific country, it has to come with green specificities and a green foundation. We cannot afford to build now things that are going to impact negatively the environment in the future. So strong green requirements, strong green investments also, for example, in our fulfillment warehouses, in our cold stores, and that is a given, regardless of the cost that comes with it. That is quite high now because it's actually a new infrastructure. And then the third point, potentially, is the fact that we do adapt to the local market. So as I mentioned, green motorbikes, EV motorbikes in Togo, EV trucks in several locations in the world, also in Africa. It's something that we're considering several locations in Africa, and we want to make sure that we do drive this. If something is not ready in a specific market, then it is our responsibility. It is our responsibility, because the same way we are the ones impacting, we should be the ones taking the lead to make sure that it is reduced gradually to the point that it is zero emissions by 2030. So a lot of actions, and I'll be happy to discuss further with the
Maury, I want to come to you on your joint border post, and what are you doing to make it more efficient and greener?
Well, by nature, what we're doing has an environmental impact on the transport sector in the region. You don't see trucks parked all over our cities, our town, provide them secure parking facilities and so on. And on our own level, we use solar panels for energy sites. We use motorbikes, as you mentioned, for our staff to go around the site with 15 hectares. It's big. We do as much as we can to lower our environmental impact in the sector. But what is moving, the main thing in our sector is that trucks in the region are around 15 to 20 years old. Very, very old trucks running. And the difficulties I imagine for the public sector is that there are not big organizations, big companies. Usually, mostly it's a pop and mom shop, one or two trucks. I think the challenge for authorities is to be able to recruit these small companies, these small shops, larger companies, and be able to provide them facilities to renew their fleet, etc., etc. I see that this is being addressed in most of our countries.
That's what I was going to come to. C'est, Monsieur le ministre, vous êtes interpellé par Monsieur Diané. Il me dit qu'il y a un défaut de réglementation. Je pense que c'est ce qu'il veut dire de manière un peu diplomatique.
No, sure. It's how do we scale that? How do we make sure that we have professional transporters in our region? And that's an issue. And I think it has to come through regulation. I think when it comes to Togo, we have adopted a certain number of regulations in the transportation sector. But it also has to come from the users of the services. When I'm about to put my container on the truck, does it have insurance? Is the truck in good condition? Who is the driver? Is he a professional driver? All those, I think there is a part of regulation, but there is also a part of mind changing, and unless we are able to combine those of the two of them, it will be very difficult to tackle this problem. And well, I really want to thank you for what you are doing, because nothing will happen in the port if at the border I take 4 days to cross the border, and I truly recognize that as an issue, because we don't have standardized IT system. We don't have, although in ECOWAS we have the common custom regulation, we don't have something very standardized which makes sure that the going from one border to another one is eventless. Exactly. So that's what I want to add. I hope I could have time to add more. I know people are waiting for lunch.
Thank you. We'll give the words to Gregory who wanted to come in.
Yeah, thank you. You give me the best opportunity with all these arguments to connect all of them in between the green, the ZLECAf, your subject, in the way that we can start green by having trucks not queuing, waiting to start up and down to enter whether the port, whether at the border. So that is the connection where we come to digitalization, because digitalization brings speed, fast connections, but also allow the people to prepare their cross-boarding at the border when they start already going on the way. The same for the ships, and with the support with the minister, we have been one of the first ports in the region to pre-manifest the cargo before it comes. So this helped me to connect to the ZLECAf, because if tomorrow we have the freedom to cross the border without stopping. Because all the processes are done online, the trucks will not stand in the road polluting because they have to stop on and off. So all these elements that we're talking about are intimately connected to the change, as the minister said, the change of mind, and also will help the transporter, because when you can do 5 or 6 or 10 trips to Niger or to Burkina instead of 2 per month, you make more money. So you can invest and you can be supported by bigger company as a subcontractor, which will finance the trucks, and you will be able to pay. So everything, as you can see, is quite interconnected, and as shipping line or our port industries, we want that to happen. That will make the change, because at the end, it's in the favor of the population, because the cost will reduce, because cost of transport is reducing as well, because when you do more trips to one destination, the cost will reduce as well. So I think everything is circled together, and you gave me the best way to put all this together in the same pot.
That was actually my job to wrap it up, but because you've done it so well, I'll stop here, and then I'll use the opportunity to thank all of you, starting with the Honorable Minister. We had a fantastic panel. I was fortunate to have people from the port sector, logistics, air transport, e-mobility, and government representatives. So thank you very much for your time for the conversation.
I'm really curious, and not too many people do
questions after my studies. I graduated from mechanical engineering in Egypt, did my master's in biomedical engineering in Italy, and then I started asking the big questions about humanity, about origins, about life. And the more I was an Egyptian woman. You know, for me it's really difficult. I think I honestly applied the night before the deadline as well. It was just something that, you know, we always, as engineers, we always leave everything to the last second. But it's more about, you know, like just trying. I think for me, before getting this one yes, I have gotten an immense number of no's. I have gotten so many rejections before, and I think you need to kind of not let that get to you and really try to use everything that people tell you, you can't do this, you're not good enough, you're never going to succeed, you're never going to have opportunities. Like, all of the things that you're always told, and I'm sure a lot of people resonate with this, and I'm sure a lot of people have been told the same things, that this is not for you shouldn't do this, and you have all of those things that you're constantly being told. And it could be difficult to not let that get to you, but you have to just kind of believe in what you're doing and really believe in the possibility that it is possible. And no matter what, at least you tried. At least you have to put yourself out there and go outside your comfort zone and really take the risk.
So believe in yourself and mental resilience. I'm sure those are principles that apply to every sphere of life, including business, and for those who are entrepreneurs in the room, also startups and whatever businesses that you're running. I have a quick question for you. Jeff, one of your colleagues, who is also an astronaut, when he had the opportunity of going to outer space, he came back and made a statement. He said, there are no boundaries in space. It's just one planet, and it's fragile. And it changed his perspective, not just about life, but also the planet that we live in. And since then, he's become a champion of sorts for the fight against climate change. In what ways did your experience in outer space change your mindset and your perspective about life on this planet that we live in?
This is one of my favorite things to talk about, honestly. And I was sent to space to analyze something called the overview effect, which is something that happens to your brain when you see Earth from space. And it is really a lot more profound than I thought it was ever going to be. As an engineer, I'm trained to be skeptical, but also trained to have an open mind. To always be, as a scientist, you have to be open to change your mind about things. So for me, it was about, well, yes, probably it's going to change something, and probably there is going to be you know, because we haven't evolved to experience something like this, our brains are not trained to see Earth from space. We're always used to seeing everything from the inside. So for me, the thing that was really, really significant was how close space is. And we always, in our language, we always say that Earth is something, space is something, and we always say we're going into space, when I think we need to be corrected in our language and say we're just leaving Earth, because we are already in space. We are on a spaceship called Earth, and we are floating in space. And a lot of the things,
so in other words, there's a continuum. We're in space, but we don't realize it, because when you're in outer space, Earth is in space.
Yes.
You're just looking at it from a different perspective.
Yeah, and that changes a lot of the ways that you see the world. And for me, the scale of everything changed. When you go to space, you don't see lines on the map. There are no lines. And those lines are what have created all of the disparities and all of the conflict that we have here on Earth. So you come back from space with this mindset that, well, it's our responsibility to protect it and to fix things. And when you see this thin blue line and you realize that's the only thing protecting us from space, you really feel the sense of, well, it's the only thing, and we have to protect it. It's the only home that we have. So since coming back from space, I have shifted my mindset into taking responsibility to actually do that and to really create much bigger change. I've always worked on solving problems my entire life, but now I am less afraid to take the bigger risks.
Awesome. Now, to your mind, as an astrophysicist, as an engineer, scientist, in what ways can science and tech help Africa lead from innovation? And what do you think the greatest advancements are that will have the greatest impact on the continent?
Well, it's really difficult for me to point at anything that we use in our daily lives that is not connected to space. literally everything. And I think it's just about, realizing to kind of point that out. Everything that we are so dependent on space and the technologies that come from it. We actually go to space for Earth. And this is something that I think not a lot of people realize. All of the astronauts that are on the International Space Station right now, they're working on experiments that benefit life on Earth. We're working on solutions for cancer research, for osteoporosis, which is this when you lose bone mass as you age. This is something that can happen for everyone. And we're working on treatments for that in space because you lose bone density at a much faster pace when you're in space. So that we're working on experimenting those first in space to be used on Earth. And then a lot of things that can benefit Africa as well as satellite developments, I say. So satellite could be used for remote sensing, could be used for weather predictions and all kinds of things. And if we continue depending on other countries for this data, we are giving up a lot of control. And I think it's really, really important for us to gain that control. Yes, I think it's really, really important for us to have that power with respect to the rest of the world, to have a seat at the table and to really be able to make those decisions about humanity's future as well. We are going back to the moon before the end of the century, and we're aiming toward Mars. So how we can't have just the demographic of people that are on the moon and in space not look like the demographic of people on Earth. This just cannot be right. It's just not right.
Well, with that projection about men and women going to the moon, where do you project that will be in terms of space exploration in the next 5 to 10 years? How different would it be in terms of the numbers and in terms of what will be happening in that space? And why is it important? Why is the space race important?
There's a lot of reasons for that. So first is there's this philosophical side and there's this actual technical side. So the philosophical side is that our universe is just so huge. And we as human beings the fact that we ask questions, it is what makes the reality around us reality, right? If we're not there to question it, if we're not there to ask the questions or look for its beauty, then it's not, who tells us that if it's real or not? And the universe is so big that it's very, very highly likely that there is other life in space. So for me, would be really, really sad for humanity to not be multiplanetary, for humanity to not explore where it just came from. We are made of stardust. When you eat a plant, you are eating a plant that contains the energy that's coming from the sun. So you're eating things that are coming from space. So and we are made of that. And it's just about exploring our origins, our understanding of the world. And that could help us be able to save Earth. Because when we're studying what happened to Mars, let's say, why is it not livable right now? If we continue to study why it's become what it is, we can be able to solve life on Earth. And all of the technologies that we're using for that are directly applicable for Earth.
How long were you in space for, and what were your responsibilities? I'm assuming it just wasn't a sightseeing trip.
It was not a sightseeing trip, no. I was sent to space to analyze the orbital flight. It was on a suborbital flight, so it was within a day. It was on a rocket called Blue Shepard. So it was named after Alan Shepard, the first American astronaut. So it was the same exact trajectory that he did many years ago. So for me, because I was the most trained astronaut out of the crew, I was responsible for medical emergencies. I was seated the astronaut 1 seat, and next to the capsule at the hatch. So in case something were to happen, I was responsible for specific scenarios, and I was only one certified to actually conduct those just in case scenarios. But thankfully nothing was, everything was okay.
Now, there have been mishaps over the years, over the many decades of exploratory space travel. Were there any concerns, inhibitions that you had or fears just before takeoff? What was that experience like? And what was the experience like for you from blast off to subject finding yourself in space? How long does that take? So 2 questions in one. Was there any fear? And then what was that experience like? For those of us who spend most of our time here on Terra Firma.
Yes. Well, I'd like to kind of give you an experience. If you close your eyes right now and try to imagine yourself walking on a launch pad towards the rockets. And the rocket is there, the capsule hatch is open, and you see your seat and you're walking towards it. And the rocket is already alive, so you hear it. And you go to your seats and you sit down and you're doing your last hookups with mission control. You tend to start feeling this anxiety inside, right? You feel this feeling in your stomach, this ache, where, oh my God, I'm sitting on a rocket and I'm going to be launching in space. And, well, you need to kind of be able to switch those feelings, to be able to really think clearly just in case anything happens. You need to be able to really be at ease and be at peace with whatever outcome that comes. So part of my training was a lot of psychological training. I had to visualize myself in that scenario again and again and again and replace whatever anxiety, whatever fear you're feeling with moments of peace. And my moment of peace was when I was volunteering in Madagascar in one of my chapters many, many years ago. We had turtle watches in the morning at 6 a.m. So I used to sit on the deck, watch the ocean, and you have to just spot turtles. We were surveying the turtles. And for me, that was the most peaceful time of my life. So you have to switch the moment of being at peace when you're actually on top of a controlled explosion, basically. And you've signed your life away. You have to sign a bunch of papers, really making sure that you're aware that this is not without risk. And you know that. But
because of the risk that you probably might not come back.
Well, of course, there's always that risk. When you go to cross the street, that's a risk as well. And I think it's all about whether you think the risk is worth it or not. For me, the risk was very, very worth it because I had been working so hard for so long for that even if I knew that, I might not come back, it was worth it for me because you become a lot more at peace as well with death and at peace with a lot of things, at peace with yourself, at peace with everyone around you, with your work, with your purpose in life. And that honestly transformed me. I mean, it's really, really, I think, something that we need to all be okay with because death is inevitable. And I think the best thing that we could do instead of fearing it is being at peace with it and living your life every single day with your sense of, am I fulfilling my purpose? Am I doing my best? Am I helping as many people as I can every single day? Am I really trying to make a difference? And if at least one or two of these has been checked, then you should feel at peace. If you should not fear what you're not in control of, you should always 100% work your maximum when you are in control, but never stress what you're not in control of. If you're sitting on a plane, there's nothing, I mean, it's scary to say that, but there's absolutely nothing that you can do to stop it from crashing. So it's just being at peace with that mindset of, well, I'm sitting here, why stress about something that I'm not in control of? And just enjoy and be at peace with everything.
Great words of wisdom and certainly tremendous applications for life in general. Now you started a startup, it's a tech startup, and you're also the chief business officer of another startup. My assumption, just from what you said, is that you've been able to transpose, take lessons from your experience as an astronaut and bring that into the world of business. That's my assumption.
Yes, of course. My company in Colorado, what we do is we're trying to target the problem of inaccessibility in space. When I wanted to work in the space field, because of my passport, I'm Egyptian, I was not allowed to apply to positions even if I was completely 100% qualified for it, because of where I'm from. So there are laws that exist that stop people from working in the field if you want to, even if you're qualified. So I started this company. What we do is we create opportunities for people from all over the world. We do not have any limitations from resources to nationalities to anything at all. So we provide opportunities in research and education, and we have space lawyers working on educating Congress about the laws that exist and why they need to be changed. Because a lot of US companies are having trouble hiring people. and a lot of international partnerships and collaborations between the world, which is part of the UN Outer Space Treaty. That's one of the priorities. They're just not happening or being stopped after years of work because of those laws. So now we have around 80-something researchers from all over the world working, and they're being mentored by people from NASA, from SpaceX, from Blue Origin, biggest names out there. And they're actually conducting very solid and very impactful research in the space field, where they would otherwise not have had the opportunity to do that. So everything that we've created within Deep Space Initiative is everything that I wish I had at the beginning. And in the second company, what we do is we use algae it's a very simple solution to a very big problem. And that's how I always like to think of things. You can always take a very big problem, break it down, and use simple solutions. And you can be creative, it could be anything, but it needs to happen. You need to be able to do it. And for this other company, so what we do is we're using algae for carbon sequestration and O2 production. So we have an Earth line and a space line. For Earth, we're trying to reduce the carbon in the atmosphere. So we have products that can be used indoors or outdoors, and to remove all of the pollutants and toxins that are in the atmosphere. Again, it's a very simple solution, and it could be out there. But the problem here is that academia, business, politics, there is some language barrier, and that's something that I've noticed. Because my background is in engineering and I have experience in entrepreneurship, I see this barrier all the time. So that's what I do now to help companies as well, is that you need to translate this language. And since coming back from space, getting more involved in politics and trying to speak to politicians, there is a whole other language. Yes. Yes. And there is a lot of, this is a whole new language. So I think there needs to be a bridge between those languages, this language of tech and engineering, this language of business, and how do you commercialize something that's been done in academia for decades, that is a useful product that could be life-saving. It's literally saving the world from climate change.
One of your companies is based in Colorado, the other one's based in Poland. My obvious question is going to be, when are you and your partners going to set up something in Africa, considering that quite a number of African countries already have space programs, and I'm sure that there are lots of young people who aspire, who want to aspire to the same thing that you have aspired to, but will never have the opportunity, considering, again, the barriers which are very powerful in Africa and the opportunities to get either to Europe or the United States. Any plans to set up anything in Africa? I know it's a tall order, and you're doing a fantastic job. But what are your thoughts about that?
I would love to. I have a honestly, that's something that I'm really working very hard to make happen, because I think it's really important for Africa to have that edge, because I am African, and I feel like also the sense of, well, I need to help Africa. It's because it's where I'm from, it's my home, it's in my blood. And I mean, doing that, everything that we do, so the company in Colorado, we have people from all over working, so we have the opportunity. So it being based in Colorado is not limiting, and that's what we're working on.
So Africa 50, you heard that here. There's an opportunity with Sarah. So I hope you're taking notes here. I'm going to give you a few final words here. For the young audience, young adults who aspire not necessarily to be an astronaut, although there's some who would be, but others also have other ambitions. And there are numerous challenges, lots of bottlenecks along the way. We have many, many young people who are frustrated or despondent and have lost hope. Given your experiences overcoming remarkable obstacles, what would your advice to them based on your experience?
A few things. Well, if we want to achieve something that was deemed impossible, we need to really believe that it is possible. We need to really see it happen. So I think there are 3 pillars here that I think I always like to mention. Is that, yes, you need to work really hard. You can't just dream about something without working for it. But you need to not only work for it, but you need to also have focus. In our day and age now, there's a lot of short-term gratification. There's a lot of distractions. And I think having focus on the long-term effect rather than the short-term ones, that's really, really important. So you have to make a lot of sacrifices, a lot of them. And you need to know, you have to trust your gut in understanding that they are going to be worth it. And three, which is the most important one, is seeing it happen. I think there's this very untapped power of visualization and manifestation that is just so powerful that we have as human beings that I think is maybe not talked about enough. You have to see it happen, and I think the more you do that, the more you see yourself in those positions, I think the more possible it's going to become. I remember a few days ago I was sitting in the room where I grew up in Egypt, and I was thinking almost exactly 15 years ago I was in that room, and I couldn't really see my future. I couldn't see myself in any of the positions that were available around me. And I was wondering, what is my future going to look like? I can't see it. I can't see anyone doing what I want to do. And for me, that kind of like switched things up, and I was like, oh yes, I'm going to see myself in it until it actually happens. And that continuing to do that, continuing to just believe in yourself and believing in other people around you. The problem in Egypt and a lot of countries as well is that we tend to have a lot more disbelief in ourselves, in our country, and our people that are of the same blood, that live in the same place. We disbelieve in them. We always think that they're not going to be good enough. And that also should be changed. We need to believe in ourselves and believe in others around us. We need to have the sense of the pie does not have a specific amount of pieces. So if you take one, there's not less for others. And so I think it's like all of that, the mindset of, well, there's always more, and the more you try, the more there's going to be available. I think we need to be working with others. And the last thing is resilience. When it gets really, really hard, the only thing that's going to either tell you you're going to succeed or not is if you give up. I think when things get really, really hard, that's when you want to give up the most. And I saw this piece of advice about, especially PhD, because I'm now doing my PhD, is that when things get really, really hard, you can't quit. You quit when they're easy. Because then when you can quit, like it's not a bad thing to just give up on something. You can, an idea for a startup could be just too early for the market, right? And that's not, dropping that is not giving up, but it's just making a smart decision. And similarly, for a PhD or for any other decisions, do not quit when things are hard. Quit when things are calm, because that's when you're making the right decision. When things are hard, you have to stick with it. You have to keep going, because you've gotten this far and you have no idea how much further you need to actually make it. So I think that's the key here. Don't quit when things are hard, quit when things are easy.
Ladies and gentlemen, please give Sarah Sari a warm round of applause. Truly inspirational and wise words coming from someone as young as you are. Congratulations on all of your accomplishments. The fact of the matter is that Sarah Sari embodies really the hopes and the aspirations of many of us. As an astronaut, as a scientist, our hopes and our dreams, really many, the dreams and the hopes that many of us have. The sky is not the limit, as Sarah has found as she's explored space. Really, when you go beyond the sky, as many of us really in our journey called life, all it is a stepping stone into a greater journey for every single one of us. So for those of you who are entrepreneurs, investors, business people, the sky is not the limit. It is just a stepping stone into a greater beyond right here on terra firma. You have a purpose, your life counts, and you will make a difference. On that note, I'm going to invite Dr. Adishna Analan to the platform to close this session. Please, I think we can do a whole lot for Sarah. It's been a wonderful pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Wish you great success.
Thank you so much.
Well, I actually wish I came much earlier, but I had some other things I was doing. But Sarah, you're just simply inspiring. It's quite amazing. To have a young she told me that the Earth was just a little blue curve, right? Like that. And so at least that's very comforting too. And I asked her, I said, how does it look like when you look at us? She said, when you look down from there, you guys don't look like you matter. It's very small. So that's pretty humbling to know that for all the things we do, we don't really matter that much. We're pretty small compared to what's up there. But thank you for being a great inspiration. Thank you for loving science, technology, engineering, mathematics. Thanks for being an inspiration for us in Africa. Thank you for helping us to know that for some of us that, you know, when my term ends as president of the African Development Bank, I'll have to find a new future. And now I see that I probably can go to space. and maybe Alan, we may start investing in infrastructure to get us there. And the board members are here, maybe we'll be able to do that. But please put your hands together for us. And now to my future co-pilot, going to the room.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This was not planned. So I think first of all, let me thank His Excellency President Ford, the government, all the distinguished participants, ministers, my chairman, just for participating in this great 2 days that we've just spent together. We heard about the visionary leaders, His Excellency President Ford Yaksibe, and then our chairman, Dr. Adeshina. We heard about their visions, and then we also spent some time learning about different topics on infrastructure. I also believe that we heard inspiring advice from Tijan Tian, one of our African champions. And we did a few additional things which are quite important, a number of signings, just to concretize the vision of our leaders. Again, President Ford and Chairman Adeshina, they presented the vision, so we're showing to them that we're starting implementation by the signing. One of the important signings was the acceleration fund, where we're mobilizing Asian investors' capital to channel it into African infrastructure. So a lot of excitement here. Now we need to make sure that we go ahead and implement at speed and at scale. That's what we want to do starting now. And I also want to thank Sarah for your inspiring words. Quite amazing what you've done. And I was listening to you and I was saying, gosh, she's young and she has so much wisdom. I actually took a lot of notes, I should say. I mean, I'm proud of learning. Whenever I am able to learn, I learn with pride. So thank you very much for sharing your wisdom. And again, thank you, Mr. Chairman, for leading us. And thank you to my colleagues, organization team, TPD and our team that put this together, and the organization. So great stuff. Let's go and implement at speed and to scale.
Everybody on the dance floor and so on. And I was happy to actually have an opportunity to dance with Sarah. And I realized that our steps were different from those on the earth. It kind of floats me a little bit actually. So I had asked her yesterday how it was. She said, you float in the air. So I think we learned something, float dancing or something like that. So thank you very much. Thank you everybody. And thank you, Richard. We'll see you everyone.
Thank you, Mr. President. Bon appetit, everyone. We're just going to take a quick group photograph.